Hi, everyone. I'm excited to share this episode with you all. In fact, I'm excited to share this little mini series. In this episode, I'm chatting with Sophie Kuzjak, who is one of our sleep coaches here at Sleep and Wellness Coach. Sophie is a mom of two. She lives in Missouri and is a retired Air Force pilot. I'm excited for you all to get to know her. This is a two-part series. The conversation you're going to hear today took place a few days before Sophie planned to transition her oldest daughter, Marlo, out of the crib and into the big girl bed. And then the second conversation that you'll hear in next week's episode is an update from Sophie that she shared with me a few weeks after she made that transition. So these two episodes are going to be unique and really good. I can't wait for you to listen. Hi, I'm Allison Egidi, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of two. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. Well, hey, Sophie, I'm so excited that you're here to have this conversation with me. This is going to be part one, and then we're going to have part two after you transition Marlo from the crib to the bed. So I'm excited to try this new type of episode. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Share with us how old Marlo is right now.
So Marlo turns 4 on Saturday.
I love it. There's going to be a lot of people thinking, oh my gosh, she's 4 and still in her crib, but we will talk more about that in a second. Can you share a little bit about Marlo's sleep history? And would you consider her a good sleeper? And is her sleep in a good place right now?
So Marlo's sleep is in a good place right now, but it wasn't always that way. She really struggled with sleep when she was 2. We actually ended up hiring you, as you know. So we definitely had to get help in that department. But right now she is a good sleeper and sleeping well in her crib.
Okay, perfect. So when exactly are you planning to make this big shift out of the crib and into the big kid bed?
Yes, so we've been talking about this for months. For her 4th birthday, we've been saying that for months now. So anytime I bring the subject up, she's like, Mom, I know. So it'll be this Friday night so that she wakes up in her big girl bed as a 4-year-old. That's kind of been our plan.
I love it. So tell me a little bit more about why you decided on doing this when she turned 4.
Well, she definitely has the ability to climb out of her crib, even with the sleep sack on. And although she doesn't try, I still would just feel more comfortable with her in the big girl bed now where she can more easily get in and out. Plus, she's getting taller. She's definitely gone through a growth spurt recently, and she's one of the tallest kids in her pre-K class. So I think it is time.
So many people are going to be listening and thinking, okay, well, if she's almost 4 and she already could get out of the crib if she wanted to, what made you wait?
What made me wait is I was nervous. This is a big transition, and we had a failed attempt when she was 2. So for her second birthday, we tried to move her to the big girl bed before she was ready. And for all the reasons that everybody does, she was sleeping in a cot at daycare. So we thought, oh, she'll have no issues sleeping in a bed at home. But that was not the case. She also, all her friends, were going through the transition with no issue, maybe a couple nights, and then they were back on track. And then the third reason we switched her was I was expecting baby number 2. And so we wanted to use the crib for the new baby. It didn't go well at all, and we lost a lot of sleep, and our whole lives were disrupted. So that's what's been holding me up for this long because I am nervous to try again, even though now I know we can find a solution and she has a lot more impulse control now that she's 4, but that's why we've been waiting.
Yeah. And I think this is a great example of reserving the right to change our mind. I was just being interviewed on another podcast, more for working parents rather than sleep specifically, but we were talking about becoming a parent and things that we've learned. And I think one of the important things that I've learned is that I need to reserve the right to change my mind. And we're not going to do everything perfectly all the time. So I love that you made that transition. It didn't go well. And then you let yourself reverse course and you got her sleep back on track and got her happily sleeping in the crib. And now, 2 years later, she's going to be in a much better place for this transition.
For sure. And that was a concern of ours when the transition didn't go well. We were actually nervous to move her back into the crib, knowing nothing about sleep at the time. And so we were nervous to do it because we thought, oh, it'll hurt her self confidence. But what was really hurting her self confidence was just not getting the sleep that she needed because she wasn't able to stay in a bed at age 2.
Right, right. Well, you mentioned that you've waited because you were a little nervous. I'd love to hear, here you are getting within days of the transition, days of her turning 4. How do you feel about it now?
I'm still a little nervous just because it was just not a good experience for us. But I do know now, I do feel confident that, like, I kind of take off my parenting hat and put on my sleep consulting hat. I'm like, oh no, we got this. We can figure it out if it doesn't go as planned. But also, I know Marlo does so much better. I can talk her through things and it goes as planned. Last time we didn't have a great plan going into it. So that did not help our case.
Exactly. So tell me the biggest thing you've done to prepare Marlo for this transition.
Yeah, so the biggest thing we've done to prepare Marlo is just talk about the plan. We've set her boundaries for her, set expectations, and then we have a plan for if things don't go well.
So I love that you said earlier that she's ready. You've told her about it, and she says, I know, mom, kind of annoyed. Because I always tell people that's when you know you are in a good place. When you tell your child the plan and they're like, yeah, I got it. You've mentioned it 100 times. I know what it is. Because then when push comes to shove and they're in this transition and they may have some anxiety too, change causes anxiety. And so even when you really want something, suddenly when it comes time to do it, you can feel anxious about it, both the parent and the child. But the fact that she just knows, she can come back to that. So, what is your kind of key message to her when you say the transition is coming? What's your kind of line or two that you find yourself repeating a lot as you're getting ready for this transition?
We just talk about how she's getting so big now and she's turning 4, so we position it as something that's positive. So we say like, you get to go into the big girl bed, yay! And we show a lot of excitement and positivity around it. And we message that around her 4th birthday, so kind of focusing on that as well.
And do you think she seems like she wants to do it? Has she had any hesitancy towards getting rid of the crib, or she's all on board? Like, let's get this thing done.
She does have hesitancy, so she's really excited. She says, "Yay!" and smiles really big, but also every now and then she'll be like, "But I'll miss my cozy, cozy crib." Like she calls it her cozy, cozy crib. So I do think she's attached to her crib. We've worked on that, making it a very comfortable space for her. So I try to then focus on, oh yeah, but you'll have your special stuffed animal and your special blanket with you. And you'll get to pick out your sheets. I've got like 3 different sets of sheets for her to choose from. So I think helping make the new bed her own will also help with the transition and help her feel like it's her new cozy, cozy bed.
And are you transitioning the crib to, the transition toddler bed, or are you getting a toddler bed, or are you just going right to a normal bed? What's your plan with the actual bed?
We are going right to a normal bed. So it's a twin size trundle that's been in our guest bedroom. So she's been around it. She knows what it's about. We'll put it into her room. So it's like adult height. And I'm hoping that for 2 reasons, because her crib does have the ability to be converted, but we're just choosing not to use that. So for the 2 reasons that we'll just use this bed we already have is because she can use that until she goes to college. So we don't have to worry about buying a new one. And then also, I'm hoping that that additional height provides just a small barrier to where if she does decide that she's going to get out of bed, maybe she'll be like, that's the effort that I don't want to put forth right now. I'm hoping that that also will help with keeping her in the bed.
That might be a little wishful thinking. Although I do have friends who are like, my kid never got out of their bed. They would call for me once they got into the big kid bed. And I
Yeah.
thought, that's a unicorn. So that's great, but not most of the kids. Yeah. And so I think on that note, for those listening, because I get a question about this question a lot of, well, what type of bed should we transition to? And I don't really think it matters. So I think if you have a crib that you could take the side rail off and it kind of converts to a toddler type bed, I think that's totally fine. If you want to buy a cute race car bed or toddler bed, I think that is fine. If you want to move your child into a twin bed or a full or a queen, I think that's fine. A lot of times people will say, is bigger more intimidating for kids? And I really don't think it is. So Addison, my first, we did convert the crib, and she stayed in that converted crib from 4 to 5 because both of my girls were in the crib until they turned 4 as well. And then with Ainsley, at that point, I had gifted that crib on to a friend of mine. And so the crib I had for Ainsley did not convert, and I just moved her right into a full-size bed. I, like you, bought the beds that I'm hoping they will have for the rest of their childhood, although I will warn you, occasionally my oldest will say, well, when I redecorate my room, will I get all new furniture? It's like, no, girl, we invested in this furniture out of the gate. This is going with you until you go to college. So, yeah, they might still ask for new things. But I don't think the actual bed you use really makes a difference. So I don't want parents to stress too much about that. On your note about her hesitancy, I know I mentioned it and I just want to come back to it for everyone that is totally normal. And I would encourage parents, if you have a child that seems hesitant, I think it's great that they love their crib. You've probably really done something right, that they feel like their crib is a safe place. And B, I also think we can tell kids that if you decide you're not quite ready and you want a little more time in your crib, that's totally fine. You just let us know and we'll make the transition when you're ready. So if you have a child who, when the day comes, they're panicky about it, there is nothing wrong with punting this transition a week, a month, whatever it may be down the road. And I really find it doesn't happen that often. Most kids want to see it through. But I do have parents who have children who say, you know what? Nope, I like the crib. And I say, let them have it. They will come to their own decision on when they're ready to move, and then they'll feel more confident about it. So most kids are going to say, no, I'm ready to go. But I want parents to know that if your child has second thoughts, it's okay to give them a little bit more time, and you can just keep checking in every week or so. Are you feeling like you might want to do it this weekend? No pressure if you don't want to do it, and see how they're feeling about that, because that can help them feel more secure too, that they know they could back out of this and we're not putting added pressure on them. And I think sometimes as kids get a little bit older, they are thinking it through a little more. Like, is this a good idea? So I can't wait to hear when we circle back how she is when the actual day comes.
We'll be prepared to be flexible, knowing that, so that if she does get really anxious, we can push it back. So we may be recording the second podcast 6 months from now, even a year from now, for the final transition. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's why this is kind of fun. Kids, there's a little bit of wild card. You can do everything to prepare a child and there's still some unknown, which is why even for me, I too was also very nervous transitioning both of my kids. I felt like that whole first night I didn't sleep well because I was just on edge. Are they going to suddenly appear? Am I going to have someone in my room? And am I ready to respond if I do? And my kids did really well, but there is a little bit of a wild card factor, which is why it's kind of fun to kind of be with you in the moment of when it's going to happen. So one last question here before we wrap up for today's conversation. I'd love to hear how your husband is feeling about the transition, because This comes into play with a lot of families I work with is one parent feels one way, one feels another. Not parents aren't always on the same page. So how is he feeling? And is are one of you more confident than the other, or is one more anxious, or do you feel like we're totally in alignment, we're ready to go?
Yeah, we're pretty much in alignment on this. He's pretty laid back and kind of lets me make all the decisions when it comes to sleep. So, and I think he has the confidence of knowing, like, oh, Sophie will fix it. Because even sometimes during bedtime, he'll even struggle and I'll like take him aside and be like, Nick, like, you have to say this instead of this. And then he goes in and it's fixed. So I think he fully trusts me on this one, that it's time. One note though, my girls share a room. So Marlo actually shares a room with her baby sister who is 21 months old. So for this transition, we're actually going to move Rosie, her little sister, into our room. So my husband's not thrilled about that, but I that's the one thing where we're not maybe on exactly the same page. Moving Rosie into our room in a pack and play and a slumber pod, just while we make sure Marlo doesn't have issues, and then moving her back into her own crib right next to Marlo's new big girl bed.
And have you told Marlo that that's what's going to happen?
Yes, we've been transparent about Rosie's situation as well. And we've tried to word it like saying like Rosie's just going to move into our room just while you get used to it, and then she's going to move right back.
Okay.
So hopefully that phrasing works.
Yeah, hopefully. And
Yeah.
then just another moving piece for us to circle back on.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm curious then, are they both trained to a toddler clock?
They are.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
And so you'll have messaging then for Marlo around don't wake any sleeping people before the light turns green, and she's all prepared. I assume she's pretty good about that now.
Yes, she is, with the exception being this past time change. She woke up an hour earlier and was like, Rosie. So she was definitely, she didn't listen then, but we had a conversation about it and she's been good ever since. But she knows not to wake sleeping people
Perfect.
until the light turns green.
I'm glad that your husband is trusting you since you are the sleep expert. So that is good. And I too often have to help my husband occasionally when he goes a little off track there. Well, Sophie, thanks so much for being willing to have this conversation. And we will talk again soon and share an update with everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.